So in my last video, I talked about awakening, those first moments when life cracks open and suddenly your whole world feels completely different. But here's the part your retreats and meditation teachers don't usually tell you. Awakening isn't always happy, happy, joy, joy. It can flip into confusion, into fear, into that scary thoughts. Am I going crazy? And psychologists actually have a name for this, a spiritual emergency. And research shows it's more common than you think. Hi, I'm Tony, talking about what's beyond the ordinary, everyday life psychology so we can think differently about life's deeper meaning. In this video, I'll show you how to spot when an awakening tips into emergency, how to decode the science behind it, and how to act in the next 24 hours if it happens to you. So here's what happened in my first spiritual emergency. Quick context, this was a guided ayahuasca ceremony with a trained shaman and facilitators. It was the third and final night, middle of summer, and I set a big intention, I drank the brew and purged. And then it was like someone cranked a giant ear con to the max. A minute ago, warm summer nights, now freaking freezing. I had to put on extra blankets and I was still shaking. And then the shaman came over to me and blew a puff of tobacco smoke right into my face. And then, boom, everything went black. Not just lights off black, but an endless, silent, dark void. And I watched my face dissolve into the dark void. The voice in my head changed.
You told, not me.
My body started rolling on the floor and humming itself, like the cable between my mind and body had just been unplugged. And then I had this realization, oh shit, my mind is gone. They'll lock me up in the mental hospital. I won't eat, work, or talk again. But then I thought about my parents and friends, how gutted they'll be if I never come back. So I decided to come back reluctantly. It felt like signing a contract I never planned to sign, knowing nothing would ever be the same. So eventually I came back to my body, to the room, to ordinary reality. But it felt like the old mind had left the building. No bliss, no sorrow, nothing. A clean, neutral emptiness where feelings used to live. And when I came back to my home country, I had to take sick leaves from work because my brains and body were bustled up with pins and needles. I couldn't watch my iPhone and computer screens too because it felt like they were scratching my mind. I was wiped and wired. So I contacted the shaman and he advised me, find a tree you feel comfortable with and sit with it. So I went to the park next to my house and one tree just called and I sat right next to it. 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The static feelings turned down a notch. So I went home, bought a yoga mat and came back to sit by the tree again. So 6 to 8 hours with the tree, day after day. So just eat, shower, and tree. That was the whole day. And when I could finally handle watching my computer screen for a few minutes, I Googled, what is happening to me? And I found Timothy Leary's article on ego death. And this then led me to finding the Tibetan book of Bardo Thodol. And then suddenly, I found a map to my spiritual emergency experience. So according to research, the accurate term that would describe my experience is called spiritual emergence, which basically means a powerful opening that just overloads your system. Still meaningful, but too much, too fast. And yeah, doctors actually have a neutral way to describe this kind of thing. In the manual, it's called a religious or spiritual problem, which means you can still talk to your doctor about it without automatically being labeled as sick, as long as your life basically holds together. So if you watched my last video about mapping spiritual awakening to mental health traffic light system, I talk about awakening is like the green zone. So spiritual emergency is like the amber zone. It's that wobble phase where you should stop to push for bigger trips. You actually slow down, reset, and add more support. And here's how you spot if you have a spiritual emergency. There's usually a big trigger, like attending a spiritual retreat, psychedelics, breathwork, heavy meditation, or sometimes it's just a big spontaneous experience. At first, it's awesome, but then it becomes too overwhelming. So in my case, the first 2 nights of retreats were full of massive visuals and soundscapes. But then on the last night, it dropped me into a dark void, an out-of-body, Tibetan battle-style death experience. And when I came back to my home country after the retreat, my body felt like constant pins and needles. My brains too. Lights, screens, sounds, suddenly unbearable. That's not you failing at spirituality. That's literally your nervous system saying, information overload. But the key safety sign of spiritual emergency is reality check awareness. It's like you're sliding across a thin sheet of ice where you can still say, okay, I know I had a life-changing experience, but I can still choose what to do next. Like, I can still eat healthy foods, I can still sleep, I can still walk outside and sit under a tree. And that's the biggest difference between a spiritual emergency and a psychosis. In psychosis, that awareness is usually gone. Basic functions like sleep, eating, hygiene, collapse. With spiritual emergency, the intensity tends to ease with rest and structure. It's usually acute and it settles over days or weeks if you give it support. Psychosis, on the other hand, tends to persist or escalate unless you get proper care. So, if you're in a spiritual emergency, what do? Here are 3 steps backed up by research. First, dial down the spiritual practice. That means slow down your long meditation or breathwork practice. Science shows that pausing intensity actually helps the nervous system reset. Think of it like when your mobile phone overheats, you don't keep running more apps, you let it cool down first. Second, go back to the basics. Sleep, food, gentle movements, and spending time in nature. Study shows regular sleep and being outdoors restores autonomic balance and reduces overwhelm. Third, ask for help. Research shows that talking to people, just being listened to in a grounded way, helps stabilize emotional intensity. That could be talking to a therapist who understands spiritual content, or someone who has been doing these spiritual practices, like me. And if you want more support, check out the Spiritual Crisis Network website link in the description section below. And remember, your local doctor and GP should know about these religious or spiritual problems from their manual and training, so you can talk to them without fear of being labeled sick. So before I knew about spiritual emergency, when I had a big overwhelming experience that felt like a mind and body breakdown, I used to think, what if this gets worse? What if I'm stuck like this forever? But after learning about spiritual emergency and how to integrate, I started thinking differently. Maybe my mind and body aren't broken. Maybe they're just resetting themselves and getting stronger. Like when you had a big massive gym workout and your muscles are sore the next day. So the best thing to do is reset and take things slower. Eat healthy food, spend time in nature, get quiet, restful sleep, and feeding my mind with good information. I need to slow down and work first, rest and reflect before I can run further up my path. So please let me know in the comment section below, have you ever had a big overwhelm experience like this? Maybe on a retreat, in breathwork, in a dream, or just out of nowhere that felt like a full-on spiritual emergency? And if you enjoy watching this video, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. It really helps me keep making these videos. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.